Welcome back to Trauma Speaks, a safe space to dismantle trauma and feed your soul. My name is Jamina and I'm your host for this channel. I want to thank you so much for tuning in as it means so much to me. I will be digging a little deeper today as someone has sent me a personal story. It is anonymous, so I will not disclose their name, age, or information. Keep in mind I will have a panel that will be giving their honest reactions and they have no idea who it is. If you do want to send your personal story, go ahead and email traumaspeaks@thirdsoul.com. And I'll go ahead and link that down below. And I just want to thank you so much again for tuning in and to all the subscribers. And all right, let's get into it. All right, I want to thank you so much for tuning back in as it means so much to me. I want you to go ahead and introduce yourself. So go ahead and say your name and one word that you identify yourself as.
Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Shanice, and one word to describe myself and how I identify myself as, I would say innovative. So, yeah.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Lele. And one word I would say to describe myself would be a creator or creative. So
Beautiful. Awesome. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get into a personal story. Please keep in mind that the story is anonymous, so I'm not going to disclose the age, information, or anything of that nature. I'm going to go ahead and read off my phone, so if I'm looking down, that's what I'm looking at, okay? I grew up with a narcissistic mother and a codependent father. My home never felt like a safe space, which fostered a lot of anxiety in me. Growing up, I assumed my mother hated me. On one hand, she would say she loved me, but on the other hand, would do everything in her power to embarrass and degrade me, both privately and publicly. Though my father was present, he never stood up for me or came to my aid. Aside from never feeling safe in my home, with the constant physical, emotional, and verbal abuse, mocking and gaslighting created a climate of shame, guilt, and fear in my household. I never felt good enough, and it caused such an extreme anxiety that eventually shut down emotionally from interacting with anyone. There were constant episodes of my mom deliberately shaming me in the name of discipline, and no one ever came to my aid. There was that one time when I was 7 when she kicked me out of the house and forced me to sleep outside for a few nights. The time she made copies of pages in my diary where I wrote about a crush and passed it out into the entire family to mock me. When I was 12, just beginning my period, she felt I wasn't learning the responsibilities of womanhood fast enough and hung the underwear I had on accident on the balcony for all my neighbors to see. And that one time I was having car troubles on summer break and she gave my car away. And the countless stories in between, that was my childhood. Growing up into this family dynamic where there was no boundaries and a slew of violence and abuse, I leaned to detach from myself and my body. At the time, it was the most feasible coping mechanism to protect myself. I learned to second guess my own feelings because, well, everyone else did. I learned to be ashamed of myself and my body. The criticism was now the way I chose to speak my own self. I stopped trusting myself, and even though I was having experiences that I knew made me uncomfortable, I thought this was how everyone was loved. In fact, I sought out partnerships, whether friends and romantic, that reinsured the same story of not feeling good enough. I recently heard when you don't respect yourself, you'll find people who disrespect you. Now that I'm 25 in a safe space, I'm a lot more mindful of the things I learned in my formative years that influence how I see myself today. I'm learning to quiet the inner critic within and be more gentle with myself. I'm learning what healthy love looks like and feels like, and taking the steps to truly love myself. Though forgiving myself for any missteps, I'm giving myself the grace to feel all the things in my body is picking up on and how it's translating to my emotions and becoming my number one cheerleader. And though some days are more challenging than others, my trauma doesn't have to define me. And doing deep dives into myself and having open conversations is a safe space such as this helped me to recreate a solid foundation in self-trust and worth.
gotta give some props.
So, what is your initial reaction to this story?
Just from me listening, I really touching and very, very deep. Sometimes, you know, you don't know, you know, the things that people deal with or go through. And I think, like, you know, just listening to the story too, you know, you wonder how people got out of, you know, or transition into who they are, dealing with, you know, past trauma or things that they've gone through growing up. And yeah, it was really touching. It was really heartbreaking.
I'm glad that person felt vulnerable enough or felt safe enough to share that story, because it was wow.
Same, like, wow, like, I could not imagine, you know, someone exposing like the hardest part of my life, especially getting my period and exposing it to the whole world, and me still trying to feel comfortable with myself and as a woman, and exposing my period to other people that it's none of their business. And it just shows a lot of the emotions that the person's mom was going through. And so yeah, I'm just in shock, like, wow.
Within hearing this story, when you think of your mom, you think of, you know, that best friend, that person that you always can go to, that person that's not going to steer you in the wrong direction. So to hear this story and hear someone go through something so traumatic and be criticized, be, you know, made as, like, you know, seen as like a laughing matter with, you know, personal situations, and to get that from the person that you're supposed to trust the most, the person that's supposed to be there for you. You know, I can't even fathom how I would feel in that moment, in that time, especially being a young girl and, you know, not really uncertain of, like, you know, certain things, and not knowing, you know, people's true intentions, and kind of like, you know, not sure, because you know that this person is your mom, but at the same time, you know, the things that they're doing isn't right, you know. And I can't, like I said, I wouldn't be able to imagine that pain.
That person having a lot of trust issues, because when you're exposed to that type of dysfunctional love so early on, you know, that's how you identify love as. And so, wow, I really hope that person is getting the help that they need, because that could, yeah, that would color how you see a lot of relationships.
For sure. The first thing I would do is hug her. And I would tell her that it's okay. For the older her, I would tell her that you are so strong. And no matter what, you're always going to be better than that person.
You shouldn't feel guilty about any of the things that you had to do to survive and get out of that, because you did everything that you needed at that time. And I would say to the older version of that young woman, I would say, I genuinely hope that you are getting help outside of, I hope that you're getting help. Because sometimes, especially when things happen, traumatic things happen in formative years, I would say that, older version, I would say, yeah, I hope you're getting help, because if you hold on to any of the hurt and any of the pain, you're going to do yourself a disservice. And it wasn't your fault, but you do have to deal with the aftermath of it, and make sure that you're not perpetuating the same cycle if you have kids, or just how you interact with people, because things like that can really make you angry and untrusting of other people. But there are amazing people out here, and there's a whole world out there for you to explore, and kind people out there. So I hope that you are getting that help so that you can understand that, because you get what you project, I would say. And yeah.
Tell that little girl that it's gonna be all right. You know, whisper in her ear that you know you're gonna survive, because looking at the older self, you're alive. And you know, some people don't make it through it. Some people don't make it through the traumatic experiences. So just reminding your younger self that you're gonna make it. You know, that you are loved. Maybe it's not showing through from parents or whoever, but there's someone out there in the world that loves you and loves you deeply. And so just knowing that you're gonna make it through. You're gonna make it through.
I would say, and that's something, that's why it's so important to, I don't know if you're ever prepared for parenthood, but I would say that's why it's so important for us to be solid within ourselves before we have kids, or before we expand our families. Because if you're not solid within yourself, you're going to project all your insecurities, and we all have them. We all have them. They're okay, but if we never deal with them, they're going to come out in the most unhealthiest way.
You know, what happens is that we, even as parents, you may have children, and then you know, you say like, okay, this is the way that I was raised, and these are the things that I don't want them to go through, or I don't want to, you know, rub off on them. And we can say that, but it's harder to actually implement that when you've been, when that's what you've been, you know, I wouldn't say trained, but kind of like, you know, you were raised a certain way. So it's kind of like, it's hard to just be like, oh, okay, I'm not gonna, you know, raise my kids to be this way or raise my kids to be that way. And then when it happens, you have certain tendencies that you're starting to see, and you're like, you know, you're stopping yourself, but at the same time, it's kind of like, you know, you can't completely just be like, this is how I'm going to be, and then it just spring into action. You know, I definitely think it takes steps, and I think it definitely has a lot to do with our unconscious and conscious mind, and how, and you know, we need to alter the way we think. I think more importantly, unconsciously and consciously, so that way we don't end up rubbing off the negativity or the, you know, negative ways that we were raised on our children. So yeah, that's just what I wanted to add on to what Shanice was saying. But I definitely think it's really important, before you have children, to do all that you can to better yourself as a person, and before the thought of even having children, make sure you better yourself, and you know what things you want to change, and make those changes before you even think about having children, so that way it'll be a little bit easier.
When I think about us collectively, and like just what our community has normalized, and like the abuse, because in that letter, the young lady said that she did have other adults around, but nobody did anything and nobody said anything. And so there's so much abuse that we've normalized as a community, and we like joke about it because that's really all that we think we can do, but we still perpetuate the same cycles. And it's crazy. It's really bizarre, because you would think that an entire community would, or the people around that person would have come and just call out and say like those things were inappropriate or completely wrong. And to have two parents in the household, and like honestly, it's just bizarre. Like it really is bizarre. And people think that I mean, obviously things are easier with support, whether that is emotional, financial, whatever. Everything is easier with support. But I don't know if in this situation is having like two parents in the household the key, you know? Because yeah, sometimes people think that's all it, but if your parents aren't there, does that do more damage, or yeah, does that do more damage than
Yeah.
having like a sound parent, one emotionally available parent? So yeah, just food for thought.
Oh, absolutely. I think that the roles that we have in our head, where a man is supposed to be the father and then the woman's supposed to be the mother, and we have these roles already stuck in our head that, the dad is supposed to come to the aid or the mom's supposed to come to the aid, and it could do more damage, because what if both of them are not like that? And so we already have in our head that this is how this person's supposed to be, and really they're not. And it goes back to that generational trauma. Is in your K through 12 years, that's your informative age. So you're learning, you're watching, you're doing everything you can, to be like your parents. That they say like, oh, I want to grow up like my parents, or I want to be like this. You are what you see. And so if your parents are constantly reinforcing certain ideas, that's what you're going to turn out to be like, without you realizing that you're not of your parents. You are who you are. And I think it takes until you get out of that household, until you realize like, oh man, like I'm greater than my parents' insecurities.
Yeah. And I think it's harder too to have your parents there but not have your parents there. Um, I mean, most people would say, well, you should be happy that you have a mom and you should be happy that you have a dad. But it's different when you have a parent or have parents or have a parent there that is there physically, but that's it. You know what I mean? Like, that's it. They're physically there. It, there's nothing that you're getting from this person that you should, as a child, or even as an adult. And it's just kind of like, okay, well, that's my parent, and what else,
Yeah, I can imagine those situations be extremely confusing for young children because, like you said, you're physically here, and I physically have two people in the home, and I physically have all of these things, and everybody tells me that I should be grateful for all of these things, but I feel like I feel like I'm not getting something. I feel like something's lacking. And as a child, you probably can't articulate that, but you intuitively know like something's off. And so in yourself, like this isn't normal, but everybody's telling me like I have a better situation than people around me, or
Yeah, I definitely think that goes down to what, as you said, as a community, what we normalize and what we make it seem as if having two parents in the household is something special, when really, like you said, is it? Like if my mom's just raising me by myself and my dad's in and out, is he really there? Or is he showing me the habits of what it looks like for someone coming in and out of my life?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what are those habits? Because it's like normally your mother's supposed to be your nurturer. Your dad is supposed to show you the like the and the masculinity part of it. Your dad's supposed to, be the protector. He's supposed to be the provider. The mom is supposed to be the nurturer. She's supposed to teach you, certain things about uh, uh, you as a woman, and like, the all of this, everything. Like, parents play an important role in our life as children, and they are supposed to be the ones to mold us into adulthood, you know what I mean? And it's kind of like, if you're not getting that, you're always gonna, that's like having pieces of a puzzle and you can't put the puzzle together because you're missing those pieces, you know what I mean? So you can't fully complete the puzzle because you have pieces that are missing. And that's the same thing that it is when you don't have a father who is showing you how to, show a father showing a man how to be a man, and a mother showing her daughter how to be a woman, And I mean, you can't, and for people, you know, to sit there and be like, oh, well, but your life is still better because, or you still have a good life because you have a mother and father. Like, no, that doesn't mean that, you know.
Yeah, no.
I'm just really
It's just as bad as not having a father, and just as bad as not having a mother there physically.
Right.
Yeah, honestly, because I think that brings a lot of confusion, but also I think that it just speaks to like the dysfunction that the trauma has left behind within our communities. Like,
Absolutely, absolutely. And you see, like I said, you see, and especially in the Black community, you see a one-parent home. And so when someone does have a two-parent home, like you said, they're like, oh wow, you should be grateful, but not knowing what that one-parent home looks like, or that nurturer is only there but the protector is gone. And so that man, that, for example, that little boy has to become the protector because all it is him, his mom, and his siblings. And now he has to step in the role to become that man. And he doesn't know what it looks like. He doesn't know how to tie his own tie. He doesn't know how to tie his own shoe. Like, and what is he left with? To become the protector that who knows where that leads to. That can lead to a lot of different things, like abuse, him seeing his mom getting abused, so that's what he think is normal. It could be so many different things that come into play with that. So um yeah, I just want people to sit in their feelings for this channel and to think about it and think about the trauma that has happened in their livelihood, and whether they had one parent or two parents, and how did that affect them. And so I want to thank you guys for sharing your thoughts and opinions on this story. It definitely means a lot. I know a lot of people out there who have a similar story but are too scared to share it. So thank you so much. And yes, again, subscribe, like, comment, please share this video. We want everybody to be aware about trauma and the things that affect us. So thank you so much again to the panelists for coming on and sharing their perspectives.
Thank you. Well, till next time, guys. As always, I'm thankful for you having me here, and thankful to hear the beautiful and amazing stories that we heard tonight. And, you know,
yeah, absolutely. We look forward to coming back and just having a safe space where we can have these candid conversations, and where there's no shame and there's no fear and guilt behind any of the things that we hold on to, because it does affect you regardless of if you think it does or not. So yeah, until next time.